Hey, what's up guys? Hardleg Joe here with the profile for my Cubic OTK deck, a fairly standard take on one of Yu-Gi-Oh's strangest archetypes. Outfitted with a spellcaster themed draw engine, I believe this build to be optimized for the one-turn kill. If you want to see this thing in action, check out the main What a Deck video, linked down in the description. Otherwise here, I'm just going to be going card by card and explaining what we play and what we do.
Starting off with our monster lineup, 3 the only literal cube, 1 level 10 that recycles our dudes, 3 free summons that can pitch our spells, got a place at Aduza and some seeds as well. Magician Souls is the final monster, hit him with spellbooks to draw cards faster, Lightning Storm can clear the way to OTK with Cubic Wave. 3 of this spell, it's good and foolish, Dharma and Karma give draws and searches, Ascension lets you stall for time, in the eyeball trap you can loop to link climb. Hey.
As for our extra deck, it's far less dank. We've got one each of, just in case, the biggest train, its awkward cousin, its 2 younger siblings, 2 apprentice magicians in a trench coat, Mr. Nuke, the backup plan, several negates on a bear, nightmares yellow, red, and brownish, I think, dive suit Karibo, I'm not weird, you're weird, and some kind of strange alien sex toy. The side deck I'll go over in a bit. So, if you know nothing about cubics, here's the basics. They are based almost entirely around this thing, Crimson Nova, the only actual cube. Not only does this square beyond compare have a whopping 3k attack, but if it destroys a monster, it can attack again. And during the end phase, it inflicts 3,000 burn damage to both players. It can't quite OTK on its own, but it can hit very, very hard, and at least get you halfway there. It also has some sweet protection from monster effects, but that doesn't help at OTK, so for the sake of this video, I don't care. What we do care about is its summoning condition. If this is in your hand, you can reveal 3 other cubic cards with different names, and special summon this. Since the goal of this deck is to summon this every single game, preferably 2 of them, I've populated the deck with a combination of good enough cubic cards, along with a draw engine so that we can get more of those cards in hand. Specifically, we're using Magician Souls, a card which has far more synergy with cubics than the deck it was actually designed for. If you're unfamiliar with this thing, you can special summon it from your hand by sending 1 high-level spellcaster from your deck to the graveyard, and once on the field, it allows you to discard 1 or 2 spell traps to draw that many cards. A somewhat unique quality of all the cubic spell traps, or at least the ones I'm playing, is that they have effects that can be activated in the graveyard. In fact, some of them are better in the graveyard than they are on the field. A Karma in the grave searches any cubic monster from the deck, while Dharma lets you add a cubic from grave to hand, meaning even though you're discarding them to draw, they replace themselves with cubics in the hand, allowing you to go plus and hopefully summon more Crimson Novas. That's why we play 3 Foolish Burial Goods to send all of these to the grave, and why we play 3 Apprentice Illusion Magician. It can discard any card to special summon itself from the hand. Most non-spellcaster decks that are playing Magician Souls will play 1 copy of this so they can send it from the deck to the graveyard to summon their souls. But I play it at 3 here because it can discard Karma and Dharma, giving me searches while putting an additional 2k damage on board to help with the OTK. Also, now that we're playing 6 spellcasters, I guess technically 7, I'm also playing 3 Spellbook of Knowledge, which lets you send a spellcaster on the field to the grave to draw 2 cards. Not only does this provide even more draw power, but it can also clear the field of your only monster, setting you up to use the lightning storms that you've possibly drawn into. Cubics are a pretty hard go-second deck, so having this to clear the field or at least bait out negations is pretty solid IMO. But it's not essential to your win condition, so feel free to side it out if you want. What is essential to our win condition, though, is finding a way to put on a little bit more damage than just a single Crimson Nova. Fortunately, we have several ways to do that. 2 of them are very simple. Cubic Karma, if played on the field, allows you to send any number of these cubic seeds from your hand or deck to the graveyard in order to boost a cubic by 800 attack for each. Using them on Big Cube will give it 5,400 attack, turning it into Bigger Cube, oftentimes letting it OTK on its own. Likewise, Cubic Wave lets you halve the attack of 1 monster your opponent controls, and double the attack of 1 cubic you control, making this into an even bigger 6,000 attack cube. And you know, if you use both of these, then you can get the biggest cube with a whopping 10,800 attack. Probably overkill, but fun nonetheless. It's also worth mentioning here that neither of these is a hard once per turn. If you open with 3 cubic waves, you can just double your monster's attack 3 times. And if you somehow get all 3 karmas into the graveyard, you can search 3 times. This trend continues with Unification and Duza. These two are the final ways we put on additional damage. Neither one has a once per turn clause, which allows us to link climb in a way that the game designers probably never intended. Unification's effect on the field is to summon a cubic fusion monster, which is pretty useless since their only fusion requires 3 Crimson Nova, and is arguably worse than the monsters used to make it. Its engrave effect, though, is pretty neat. It says if a face-up cubic monster leaves the field, you can banish this card from the graveyard and summon a level 4 lower cubic from your hand or deck. Duza, meanwhile, is a level 4 cubic, and when it's summoned, you can send a cubic from your deck to the graveyard. Obviously, this is good in general, since you can, send karma to get searches, but in combination with Unification, it can get pretty nutty. Let's say all you have is this. Normal summon it and send Yo Fusion Trap to the graveyard. Then use Duza as link material for Clara and Ruska. Since a cubic has left the field, Unification triggers, letting you summon another Duza from the deck, who promptly sends another Unification to the graveyard. Link away this new Duza and Clara for one of your Link 2s, and you can do the same thing again, getting a third Duza who sends a third Unification. Link those away for Nightmare Unicorn, and you can use that final Unification to summon one of your cubic seeds. Together with Unicorn, seed can be used to make Accesscode Talker, who will have 5,300 attack and the ability to destroy 2 or 3 cards on the field. Of course, you can only special summon Yan Puppets in main phase 2, so that particular combo won't let you OTK, but if you can get Duza on board with anything else, like say one of our many special summon spellcasters or a cubic seed, you can do that combo before the battle phase and end on Accesscode plus Big Cube, which is pretty much guaranteed to win you the game. Speaking of cubic seeds, these things make up the last section of the deck, which is stalling. Normally you don't want to do that in an OTK deck, you want to remove elements that only stall, but with cubics, you don't have many other options. You have to play a lot of cubic cards for Crimson Nova to work, so it's either make your deck less consistent, add a decent stall engine, or add in the weird, stupid cubic cards that don't work at all, so yeah, we're gonna go with the stall. Anyway, V-Jam is neat, it can't be destroyed by battle, and if it does battle, you can place 1 cubic counter on the monster it fought. Monsters with cubic counters can't attack and their effects are negated, which means it's sometimes worth the damage to run these into things. Fortunately, you don't always have to do that, because Cubic Ascension. This trap says if your opponent declares an attack, you can summon 1 cubic seed from the deck and force your opponent to attack that instead. Pretty nice if your opponent has something that can beat over Big Cube, for example. This also has a graveyard effect which says, if your opponent has at least 2,000 more life points than you can banish this to summon a seed from your hand, deck, or graveyard. Also, if you do this while your opponent has monsters and you do not, you can summon the other 2 seeds as well. Seems a little situational, but I cannot tell you the amount of times this has saved my ass and led to a comeback. Whether it's summoning 3 seeds late game so I can stall for a second boss cube, or just summoning 1 additional seed so I can link climb with Duza, having this has been entirely worth it in my opinion. That pretty much covers the main deck. As for the extra deck, it's pretty simple. The fusion is just here for style points, you probably don't want to run it. Your big cube is level 10, so it's good to play some trains just in case. You can get this off the field so you don't take burn damage and OTK your opponent. That's also why we're playing the one-off Exodius. Not only is it another high-level spellcaster, but it can special summon itself by returning all monsters in the graveyard to the deck, allowing you to make links or rank 10 monsters with Nova. Likewise, 2 apprentice magicians can make Norito, which negates spell trap, so why not? Our only rank 4 is Exoton, because if you have 2 Duzas and you can't link climb, you probably just want to destroy the world. Accesscode is the optimal boss monster for this deck, because it only takes 2 monsters, unlike the Borals, which take at least 3. Same with Appaloosa, you can make this first turn with 2 materials, so we play it. It's not optimal by any means, but it's better than nothing. The Nightmares are essential for link climbing, and they can discard cubic spells while doing so absolutely play these. Clara and Ruska, like I said earlier, just there so you can combo off with a single Dooza if need be. And finally, our 2 level 1 links. These are important because oftentimes we can summon 3 cubic seeds from the deck, but a lot of our links require monsters with different names. These 2 allow you to turn 2 seeds into monsters with different names, and then go into Nightmares, or possibly even a 4 material Appaloosa if you got an additional summon. That just leaves the side deck. A lot of these one-off cards are just other things I was considering. My previous cubic deck was focused almost entirely on burning the opponent to death, using stuff like Barrel Behind the Door to make them take my half of Crimson Nova's damage, along with doing things like Ceasefire to finish the job. It's still an interesting way to play cubics if you want, but it's a bit slow these days. I found that with the new support and the draw power, it was easier to just beat my opponent to death rather than wait. There's also another cubic trap, which has some potential, but I couldn't quite make it to work. Maybe you can. Kaijus can be useful going second. I prefer Lightning Storm, but maybe a whole package of these might be more fun, add on some damage. And Chaos Sorcerer, which has potential as an additional high-level spellcaster, if you could maybe fit in 1 or 2 more light monsters into this. The rest of this is just stuff I'd actually consider for the side deck. Borreload is decent to get rid of niche boss monsters like Avramax, and it's not too difficult to make, especially if you can resolve Ascension. If you find that your link engine is more effective than Comrade Cube, Summoner Monk can be a nice addition, lets you discard a spell to summon Dooza out of the deck, which sets up everything you need to link climb. And rounding it off, we have Extravagance with Dimension Shifter. Despite only using the extra deck as a backup plan, we don't play Extravagance because it stops you from drawing for the rest of the turn, effectively shutting down souls, which I feel is a much better option in this deck. However, if you're going up against the meta, especially if you're made to go first, it might be worth it to trade out souls for something like Dimension Shifter. This can significantly weaken both Adamancipator and Eldritch, and while it hurts you, it doesn't completely prevent you from playing. With souls gone, you can then side in Extravagance, and hopefully draw into the cards you need to summon an OTK with Nova without even having to use the graveyard. It's kind of a long shot, but if you're playing a jank deck like Cubics, sometimes that's the best shot you can hope for. Regardless, there's the deck. I hope you enjoyed it. Like the video if you liked it, comment if there's any changes you would make, and subscribe if you want more strange deck profiles in general. I do one of these every other week. Thanks for watching, and until next time, good luck and have fun.